Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Our guest is Michelle Walters. Michelle is a ferocious imagination advocate, team leader, and corporate life graduate. Michelle Walters writes and speaks on themes associated with the power of the mind, positivity, spirituality, and the law of attraction. Michelle is a clinical hypnotherapist, executive coach, and author of An Alignment of Spirit: Finding Work You Love. Michelle, thank you for being a guest today.
Thank you, Karen. I'm delighted to get to be here.
Awesome. So the audience that I have is typically trauma survivors or those who, is there any part of your life that you feel there's trauma in that will help us connect you to the audience?
Well, I do my best to live through it and get past it. Probably the most traumatic thing in my life that's happened is the loss of two partners. So my husband was ill when I met him, but then he had a life-saving transplant and got a whole lot better. Years later, he got an infection and then had a stroke and suffered a few years of significant disability before he passed in 2011. And so while he'd been a sick person and he'd been living in a care facility for a while, it was still really hard when he died. I realized that death is not easy, even if you anticipate it. And then a few years later, I met a wonderful man who swept me off my feet. I chose him because he was healthy. And 3 years after we met, he was diagnosed with an extremely rare disease that 3,000 Americans get every year. So it's, something people have really never even heard of. And he wound up needing to go on chemo, and then he passed away in 2021. And, I guess I could kind of have seen my husband's death coming, but I never saw the second partner's death coming. And I'm not sure, you're the expert, more on the difference between trauma and grief, but this has really been extended grief for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of symptoms overlapping, and I think the theme might be how you don't have any control, and it just feels very unfair. Losing one partner should be enough for one person's lifetime. And also, both of these men were fairly young.
Oh yeah.
So that's really.
And I'm fairly young. I'm still in my mid-50s. Those who can't see the podcast have no clue. But, to have lost two partners by your mid-50s is a little unusual, To have lost two partners in your mid-80s, maybe not so much, but.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm sorry that happened. Are you comfortable? If I ask you something you're not comfortable, we already talked, just don't answer or change the subject, but are you comfortable sharing what your hardest symptoms with this complicated grief were? Is it your ability to eat, sleep? Were you able to focus? What was the hardest part?
Focus. I would say focus. It's easier to recall Scott's death, my partner's death, because that was more recent. But when he died, there was a lot of turmoil with the family and a lot of lack of understanding and appreciation. I was very much kind of pushed to the outside when I'd been the one helping him with his appointments for years. And so, when he passed, there was this, it was also COVID, right? So, and I had moved. So I didn't have my support circles. I didn't have it. It was extremely hard on me at that time. I am a person who who with usual stress, I overeat, but with extreme stress, I kind of stop eating. And it didn't get to the point where there was a major health concern or anything, but certainly I noticed it just lack of energy, not wanting to get out of bed or do anything, being kind of afraid of the world. These were all, feelings that I had at balloon level, huge level going on right immediately after Scott's death. I'm not a person, I've been through grief before, when my husband died, and I knew that there were things I could do that would help, but a lot of grief, I haven't found an accelerator for.
Right.
And I did what I could do to try and balance out spending time thinking about Scott and his death and the problems and difficulties of kind of how it all ended, and trying to find some new interests. That's really when I got started with my business. And the business provided an outlet for putting time into something that was all encompassing and diverting and productive. And I felt very confident that both of my men were just from another side, from a non-physical plane, wanted me to succeed in this business. And I tried the best I could to use that as fuel to motivate and keep going.
That's beautiful. Were you a hypnotherapist before your partner died?
I had trained as a hypnotherapist while he was sick, actually. I had another career. I worked in digital marketing for corporations and agencies. And then on the weekend, I trained as a hypnotherapist because I got inspired by a novel to be a hypnotherapist, which is a whole different thing. And then, so I had done a bunch of that training. And then the day that I was scheduled to go back to training for some sort of top level work was I had spent the night at my partner's house, which had been the first time in months because of COVID fears. And I woke up getting ready to drive off a couple counties away to my class, and realized that Scott was acting like he couldn't hear me, like he didn't understand me. And it was the morning that he'd had a severe stroke. And so I wound up taking him to the hospital, but dropping him off because this was COVID hospital and like you can't be there, and trying to go to hypnotherapy school and crying throughout the whole day. The topic that day was grief. So it was
Of course it was.
Synchronous. Yes. But so then Scott was in the hospital for a long time, and I was going to hypnotherapy school. But I did complete all of the training and did a little work before Scott had passed, but I didn't get my office and sort of properly launch until a few months after he died.
Okay. Well, I'm very curious. I'm a bibliotherapist. What was the book that you were reading that inspired you?
It was a novel. It was a novel by an Australian author named Leanne Moriarty. She wrote
I
Big
knew
Little
you were going to
Lies.
say it.
She wrote a book called A Hypnotist Love Story. And I
love
read
that book.
You love that book. Okay. Well, I don't meet that many people who've read it. It's not like, that common in the US, but it's a cute little book,
Oh,
right?
It's awesome.
It's funny and charming. So we're publicizing the book here, but it's a great little book. And I read it and I was like, wow, this lady has the coolest career. I could do that. And so I Googled it and I found a school in Marin. I live in California. It was a couple counties away. They were open on the weekends, and they had an open house that weekend. So I went and met the owner of the school, and I was like, oh, he's cool. I'm going to try this. And I got into it, and I just loved it so much. I just kept going and finished all the, I didn't really know that that's what I was going to do, but it's turned out to be something I'm really good at. And I love being able to help other people. It's very quick and effective. And, I've helped people with all kinds of things. a few of the people come to see me have what I would call sort of trauma or like an intense thing going on, right? Something big has just blown up and they're looking for some support. And then I get people for other stuff too, like cutting back on sugar or alcohol or other behavior changes. So, but I love it. I just love being able to help people in this way.
Now, I am fascinated by hypnotherapy. I think I might have told you that before. And you're on my short list of people to hire at some point to try it out. My
Very
problem
good.
is I want to try all the healing modalities all at once, right? But yeah, I'm coming for you. Don't worry. I
Lovely.
love that. And I loved Leanne. I read all of her books, by the way. So I love that detail. I had no
You're like
idea.
me, like when you find an author you like, and I'm like, I just plow through them all. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm
And
waiting
Michelle,
for, I don't know what her next book is, but I'm waiting for it.
same. Tell us a little bit about your book, The Alignment of Spirit, Finding Work You Love.
So while all this was going on, while Scott was very sick and that kind of a thing, I just felt kind of called to write a book. I don't know what else to call it. I didn't really write the book very strategically for my business. I just felt like I needed to. I'd been reading all these other books. I read a lot of nonfiction, and I wanted to put all of these things together. The career that I had in digital marketing was a lot of on again, off again. I would work for an agency, they would lose the contract. I would work for a client, then there would be a reorganization. And so I had to get new jobs like all the time. And what I realized was that I had started using kind of a law of attraction process to do so. Because, yes, I do not tell people that they can just pray and their job will come. That is not a very strong strategy. But you do need to find ways of getting yourself into the right place to be able to bring in what it is you're looking for, whether that's a job or a new boyfriend or whatever. And so I put those processes and stories and a lot of scientific supporting evidence together in my book, An Alignment of Spirit, Finding Work You Love. And it's a very positive book. It's a book that has a lot of activities in it. And I have some hypnosis tracks that go with it that are available to members on the website. And it's a great way to kind of get your game on if you are somebody who's interested in manifesting and want to be able to learn about it. It's a pretty quick read, but I've gotten lots of positive reviews for it. Like I said, it hasn't really forwarded the business. I didn't write it for that purpose, but it's a great way to learn and grow.
It sounds like it's an awesome. I have not read it yet. I am interested in reading it, but it sounds like a great interplay or a marriage between faith and science. Would you agree?
It is. It is. So my undergraduate degree is in science. I'm a science major. I love charts and graphs, and I teach hypnosis, and I have this cool little chart that shows how, you go from low hypnotizable to more hypnotizable and what changes and how it goes up and down. And I love that part of things. When for years, for a millennium, really, people have been using skills of hypnosis to help persuade other people, to help get people over things, to do that kind of stuff. And we've never understood why it worked. And then a few years ago, a prominent hypnosis scientist named David Siegel put together a study I think it was at Stanford, he's at Stanford, to figure out what is going on in the brains of people who are hypnotized. So we put people who are hypnotized into an MRI scanner, and lo and behold, now we can see that certain parts of the brain dial down in hypnosis. And we believe that it is those quieting of certain parts of your brain that allows people to adopt those positive suggestions and make the changes that they're trying to make in their lives. It makes sense anyway. It makes sense that, because usually you're in your conscious mind, and your cognitive executive center is thinking and trying to figure things out. But when you're in a state of hypnosis, it is much more relaxed. And so you don't get in your own way, if that makes sense.
Very cool. And is there another book in your future, do you think?
Yes.
Are you working on it now?
Inspired. I'm working on it now. I'm working on it now. I recently trained as a leadership coach, and
Great.
I'm very excited to start working in that category. And so I got it in my head that I need to write a little book. I'm not going to reveal the title here because it could change, but it's a little book. I'm hoping I can come out with it this fall. It is a little bit more strategic for my business. It is hopefully going to be pretty, it's fun to put together. It's, at least at this point, I'm having fun putting it together. And so I'm excited about being able to do that. But thank you for having me on your show. And thank you for letting me talk about books, Karen. I love to talk about books. We talk about books all day.
Books are my love language. If you saw my house, it looks like it's going to be taken over by books. Yeah, so keep us posted later, because it might be that your episode airs around the time your new book's coming out, and we can always add it to the show notes.
Great.
Okay, your future.
I will keep you posted.
Yeah. So Michelle, tell us a little more about your business, because I think you're very talented. You're able to offer your clients a wide range of services at this point. Tell us a bit, do you have workshops? I know you do, but I want you to talk about that. But I don't want to pretend I don't know these things. But tell us a little bit about your workshops, your classes, like the things that you can offer people to help them heal or be better in some way.
Absolutely. And thrive and dream, right? I offer, most months, I offer either a hypnotherapy class or a leadership program. And for example, 2 of the hypnotherapy classes I've offered recently are SOS, Stop Overeating Sugar, and Think More, Drink Less, to help people who want to cut back the alcohol. And I like to offer those sorts of programs that help people, have an easy way to come and learn about things. I teach people about how to make quality decisions on the conscious level. I teach people how to do hypnosis. Usually once a year, I teach people how to write their own self-hypnosis for things. So that usually is something I offer in the fall. If you're listening to this in the fall, check my website. You might be able to get to that class. And then on the leadership side of things, I recently trained with a big organization called John Maxwell. They do global leadership training. And I'm now beginning to offer those programs, both as things like masterminds. We're going to do a mastermind on a book that's coming out next week called High Road Leader, which is all about sort of how to be a high road leader as opposed to a low road leader, which is where I think some of our national leadership has been focused lately. And it's not about being, a political, but really sort of what are the values and the traits that we can follow to be, an empathetic, unity building, holding people accountable kind of leader, because that's the leader the world needs right now. I offer, of course, one-to-one services, both in person in my office in the East Bay of California, as well as I see clients nationally on Zoom. What else do I do? And I'm going to start working with companies, which is a burgeoning part of the business. But I really am very excited about bringing both the John Maxwell material that I have to offer now, as well as my own material, because I have a lot to say about how the conscious and subconscious mind works. And I think it's so important as people think about how to think. Really, one of my clients said, you taught me how to think. I was like, yeah, because I think a lot of times people don't know enough about how to sort of connect with their inner wisdom and that part of thinking.
Right. I love that. One of the things I teach people is you can be the smartest person in the world. That doesn't mean that everything you think is true. And I teach people how to analyze how they think. I have 5 steps to that. Yeah.
I think when it comes to trauma, I would imagine a lot of people get some sort of something stuck in their head. You know, it was my fault, or I brought it on, or I could have done something different. And maybe, but very likely that's not helpful thinking, you know?
Right. Especially if you're a child, there's not too much you could,
No.
there's,
What could you have
yeah,
done? What could you have done?
none of the shame belongs to the child. Yeah.
No, no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Michelle, what is
Yeah.
what is your most favorite part of your business so far? Is it your podcast? Is it your coaching? Is it
I think it's speaking.
one-to-one?
I
Speaking?
think it's speaking.
I
I
feel
love
like you're in your
speaking.
element.
I love speaking. I was really blessed this week. I had a number of speaking opportunities, and while it's exhausting, I find it super fun and super rewarding. I love getting to meet new people. I love getting to hear what's going on with them and kind of what's top of mind for them. I love being able to connect the dots. You know, sometimes they're thinking one thing, and then I can bring them a tool or a way of thinking about it that gives them a new opening. And I love being able to lift people up, you know. Don't get me wrong. I love working one-to-one with my clients in my hypnotherapy practice, you know, and being able to help them make changes that really impact the quality of their lives. Being able to get out of the house, being able to go back to driving, being able to not eat much sugar, you know. I love that. But I do thrive on speaking.
Awesome. Yeah. And you're very articulate. You know, it's
I have worked on it, but a lot of it also is a gift. I was born with a lot of gifts, and I wanted to, you know, acknowledge that not everybody was born with the gifts that I was born. I very much I try to make good choices, because I think that's the part of, you know, we're all born with what we're born with, but the only thing you can really control are what are the choices you make, you know? And so I do try to make good choices, take care of my voice, improve my skills, you know, become a better listener. You know, you know, the value of listening. A lot of people are still learning.
but there's a reason why we have two ears, right, and one mouth.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. At Toastmasters this past week, my speech was on the speaker listener technique. So I got to share more about the importance and the skill of listening. Yeah.
I love it. That is something that Toastmasters probably doesn't hear very much.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about your podcast. Like, what kind of guests do you look forward to hosting your podcast?
So I have a podcast with my friend, Cynthia Barkovisser. Cynthia and I go way back. The podcast is called Mind Power Meets Mystic. I'm the Mind Power because I'm the hypnotherapist, and Cynthia is the mystic. She is many things, including an intuitive healer and trying to remember. She's always changing her name. Anyway, she's outstanding at being able to kind of see things from the other side and help people put together kind of what's in their hearts, right? So we like to interview a wide range of people. We talk to therapists. We talk to people who went to spa this week. That was kind of fun. We talked to, at Halloween, we interviewed a ghost hunter. That was one of my favorites.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, we talked to, you know, kind of everybody from both, I don't know, sort of a traditional walk of life as well as some untraditional walks of life. And we really like just to kind of better understand like what's going on with people, where is their motivation coming from, and how are they leaning into their intuition and inner wisdom. And Cynthia and I approach things differently. She hears from her guides and sources on the other side, while I really work with my clients to draw out of them where they're hearing their guidance from. And some of them can recognize the source as grandpa who showed up this week, or sometimes they don't know the source, but nevertheless, the two methodologies kind of approach similar problems from different directions. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a fun time on our podcast.
It does sound a lot of fun. I know I was recently a guest, but it was just
Yes,
you that day. Cynthia was not
it was just
available.
me. And
Yeah.
we mix it up. Sometimes it's the two of us with a guest. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's me and a guest. We mix it up. So if you listen to our podcast, you just got to kind of roll with whatever you're going to get that day.
I would say the same with mine, because I don't have a format I follow. I just love to just kind of wing it and let it be natural conversation. So yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's more fun for the listener too, to never know what to expect.
Exactly. You got to keep them guessing.
Yeah. All right. So I'm trying to figure out how we could end like that would feel powerful. But I feel like there's one question before we get to the end. With the trauma survivor in mind, like I know like leaderships for trauma survivors is a thing. I've done a lot of leadership training when I was with the Department of Defense. And I know that helped my voice and be more of an advocate. So I know that you have that for survivors. But can you maybe just speak a little bit on how hypnotherapy in general could be so powerful for a survivor?
Yeah. So I can think of a recent client who came to me, and she had gone through kind of a terrible thing, and it had immediately happened. And she was sent by her mother, who's another client. And what hypnotherapy was able to do for her was really reduce the noise and anxiety related to the recent trauma and kind of give her a break from thinking about it so much, because clients in hypnosis can really go into their inner space. They can find tools of relaxing and releasing and kind of better understanding what they should own versus what they don't need to own about the situation. There was in her situation, there was very little for her to own about what had happened. It was really all about some trauma that had been created by her partner. And so the hypnotherapy was really helpful at grounding her and getting her just a little bit more confident as things move forward. And then she transitioned from seeing me to seeing a longer term psychotherapist and some therapists who were specific helpers in the particular type of trauma she had suffered for longer ongoing support. A lot of time when I work with clients, I'll work with them for a month or two. Like, I don't necessarily work with them for a long period of time, but the depth that we can get to in hypnotherapy can be very powerful. I have another client, and this week she was going through a divorce, and she came to see me, very hypnotizable woman, instant tears coming out of her as part of sort of the draining of the stress about her situation. But then being uplifted by being able to visualize some new, as one loss creates space, new opportunities can come in. Does that help, Karen?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I wanted to make it more concrete for listeners who are not sure how it could be helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So what do you think would be a good note to end on? Because, like, again, you had just so many different talents. Like, is there a favorite book you want to end on? I did that with my last person today. It could be a favorite book. It could be a favorite poem, a favorite quote. Like, what's speaking to you as how to end?
I think ending with a beginning is a nice way to end. And so I'm going to make another plug for my book, because I think that my book is a really nice way of kind of looking at things, how to release things, how to create new, better things that you are drawing into your life. And I think that enough people haven't read it. So It's called An Alignment of Spirit, Finding Work You Love. It's by me, Michelle Walters. It's available on my website or on Amazon. It's pretty easy to find. And it's a very uplifting kind of book. So if people are like you and me, people who like to read, people who are inspired by people who got their career from Anne Moriarty, might like my book.
Awesome. And where can people find you if they would like to learn more about you and your services?
The easiest way to find me is my website, which is www.michellewalters, spelled just like it sounds, .net.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being a
Thank
gift for
you,
us
Karen.
today.
All right. I really appreciate it. Have a great day and heal, thrive, dream.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.